Well, if my Max Verstappen video for 2024 Brazil was the first video the world was waiting to see, then this is the second video that the world is waiting to see. How can Lewis Hamilton pull this out of the fire and bring home number 8 and become the undisputed greatest of all time with Ferrari? How are we here? You know, how have we fallen into this valley of despair? We're going to go into Abu Dhabi 2021, the mental and mindset side, the technical issues in 2024, and now moving into Ferrari, what needs to be done and how he can win this world championship. This is an open letter from a specialist and technical driver coach and mentor for open formula drivers. If you're interested in what my thoughts are, definitely keep watching. Welcome back to the channel, guys. Like I say, my name's Martin. I'm a specialist technical coach and mentor for open formula drivers. We've got 4 parts to this video. We're going to talk about Abu Dhabi 2021. We're going to talk about the potential mental implications that could have had. We're going to talk about the technical issues that Lewis has had 22, 23, and 24. And then we're going to talk about what needs to be done when he moves over to Ferrari next season. Now, look, guys, there's 2 things that I want to say up front here. Number 1, this is how it is. This is going to be advice from a technical specialist driver coach and mentor for open formula drivers. I'm going to tell you guys exactly how I see it. I'm going to give the blueprint and steps that Lewis needs to take to move forward. It's up to you, therefore, whether or not you take this on board and use it for the good and for the best benefit of Lewis Hamilton. I'm not here to say like, oh, this is what could happen or should happen or might happen or could have happened or where. It's not wishy-washy. This is going to be like, bang, you take this or you leave this, and you take this professionally and you don't take this personally. That's the first thing I want to say. The second thing I want to say is let's put some respect on Lewis Hamilton's name. This is not straightforward. Like, we're talking about the upper echelons of motorsport going for the greatest of all time, 8 championships. Abu Dhabi 21 was a difficult situation for anyone. Like, I just want to say that this is a lot easier said than done. Notwithstanding that, I'm going to tell you that I'm doing my part. This is going to be the part that's said, and Lewis is going to have to do the part that's done. I just want to say it will be a lot easier said than done. But, you know, like I say, we're talking about the greatest of all time here. So a problem well defined is a problem half solved. And it's going to be my job here to do the problem well defining part. And it's going to be Lewis's job to do the problem well solved part. Okay, so here's how it works for all sporting endeavors. A technical deficiency is going to lead to mental and mindset implications, and mental and mindset implications are going to lead to more technical deficiencies. It's similar in a way to how the tires work. If you slide the tire, you're going to overheat it. And if you overheat the tire, you're going to slide it. Exact same thing with sporting endeavors, sports professionals, and people competing at the highest level. A technical issue is where everything stems from. Once you've messed something up technically, then you've got the mental and mindset implications, and that is going to degrade your performance technically further. So the key, therefore, is to resolve for all of the technical issues. Everything is downstream of a technical issue. I've never seen a driver or sports person win a race, win a championship, and then have mental doubts or self-confidence or self-belief doubts on the back of that. It doesn't happen. The more you win, the more you win, the more you think you can win, the more you win. That's how it works. So we need to resolve for the technical issues because, like I say, everything is downstream of that. And I'm gonna highlight this stream to you, and then we're gonna work backwards and try to resolve for the technical issues because that's the root cause of everything. And we need to get to the root cause to find the underlying problems, so resolve for them, and then, you know, everything will take care of itself. I promise you. Okay, so let's talk about the first technical deficiency that's led to the whole thing. Abu Dhabi 2021. Now, look, it is a can of worms. I understand that. I understand that it's, you know, bad calls, referees calls, high drama, high conspiracy. I understand all of that. And it is a can of worms, but we need to open that can of worms and face it head on. It's not going to serve us if we just turn a blind eye and say, yeah, that was bad luck. That was conspiracy, blah, blah, blah. No, we need to look at it head on. We need to look at it for what it is and say, well, where were the strengths? Where were the weaknesses? Where were the opportunities? Where could things have gone better? And what could we have done moving forward? Where were the technical areas where Lewis could have improved? How could he have won that race still, right? Notwithstanding what happened with the referee's call, how could he have won that race? We need to face that head on and just, you know, take that on and take that down in order to move forward. So the first point I want to make here is that you can't control the referee's decision. As a sporting athlete and sporting professional, you're never going to control. Yeah, you can crowd the referee, but you're never going to control or overturn the referee's decision. And that happens in all sports, guys. That happens in tennis when a ball is called out. That happens in soccer when the referee blows a penalty. And it just is what it is. Like, as an athlete, you just have to deal with that and move on and move forward. So I want to highlight to you one example. Let's say in the tennis world, for example, let's say that it's 2 sets all, which is what we had pretty much in Abu Dhabi 21. It's 2 sets all, and you're fighting for, you're at juice, 6 or whatever, tie break. It's getting towards the end of the match, right? And one of your shots gets called out that wasn't out. Well, there's two things here at play. Number one, how did we get into this position? How are we in a position where it's almost match point and very small margins, like a referee's call, could swing it one way or another? That's the first point of contention. It's similar to in soccer, like, a ref blowing a penalty that shouldn't have been a penalty. Well, hang on. How are they in our box in the first instance? Right? That's the first topic. And I'm not going to go into that one because that will lead me down the path of, could Lewis have done a better job in Baku with the brake magic, and Monza, what happened there, and blah, blah, blah. I don't want to get into the whole championship. We're here now. We've got to solve for the issue that's in front of us. So that's the first thing. How did we get here? Obviously, Lewis and his team could reflect back on 21 and see what they could have done better. I'm not going to go into that because it's still all to play for on that final lap in Abu Dhabi 2021. So the referees made a bad decision, whatever. We could have put ourselves in a better position up to that point. That's fine, but it's still all to play for. It is still match point. There's still a point that needs to be played. And I'm going to focus all of my attention on that point and look technically at what happened on that point. That is the final lap in Abu Dhabi 2021. Who had what cards and who played those cards better? Now, when Max has been faced with something like this, like a bad call from a referee, he doubles down and technically he's excellent. Let me give you 2 examples. So Brazil 2024 in qualifying, they pulled out the yellow flag. I think it was for Stroll's crash, and Max didn't get to complete his lap. Whatever, you can say that it wouldn't have mattered and this or that. Max was very angry with that. Max was starting P17. He was starting last for that Grand Prix. And he could have easily said, the referees called this and that. No, he starts last and he goes 16, 15, 14, 13, 12, 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. He's in first position leading that race and he dominates and smashes everyone from the back. That's his response to a bad sort of referee's call, number one. Number two, in Qatar Grand Prix recently, Max took pole position. Terrible referee's call, George Russell milking a penalty, and then Max starts the race P2. What does he do? Gets a killer start, gets up the inside of George Russell, manages and controls the race, takes the lead, flawless restarts. Like, the technical is excellent, and that's how he responds in those 2 situations. When he got a bad referee's call, again, you can't control the referee's call. You've got to take it on the chin for what it is. But what you can control is how you respond to the referee's call. And that's what I want to double down on here in Abu Dhabi 2021. So in my opinion, like I said before, it was all to play for in 21. There was still 1 lap to go. Lewis had the lead. And we need to start to look at now what cards each driver had. So it's very easy to look and say, well, Max had the soft tire. Lewis is on old hards. It was only natural that was what was going to happen, and it was inevitable that Max was going to pass. No, there's 2 different situations, and I would argue Max wins in either case. So case number 1, you give Max what he had. You give him P2, the soft tire. That's pretty much all. They're the only cards that he has. He's got P2 and the soft tire. They're the only cards he has. He needs to play those cards to the best of his ability in racecraft. Or you need to give Max all of the other advantages that Lewis had. That is track position. He's in the lead. 1 lap to go. He doesn't need to keep the lead for very long. Only 1 lap. No DRS on the first lap. Ability to control the race restart. Again, these are the threads at which Max could potentially pull at and still win that race. Now you've got to remember, it's in the details at this point. Very small margins are gonna push it one way or another. We saw Max even intimidating Lewis under the safety car restart, pulling alongside saying, I'm here, mate. I'm here and I'm on the soft tire and I'm coming past you. And it's that sort of thing. It's that magic in that final lap that Max was able to execute. Now, like I said before, I'd argue Max converts in both ways. He obviously converted with the position he had, But you're telling me Max Verstappen's not going to convert with the race lead, the ability to control the restart, 1 lap to go, and no DRS down the main straight, down the back straight? Of course Max is going to convert. He converts every single time in that situation. Why? Because it's an assessment in racecraft. So what is therefore the technical error that Lewis Hamilton made? Well, in my opinion, it's attack and defense, which is defined as racecraft. So into the turn 5 braking zone, Lewis didn't pull across and cover the inside. Now, I know Max was very far back, but it's last lap for the championship. Of course he's going to make a lunge. What's his other option? Lose the championship? Of course he's going to make a lunge. So pulling across to defend the inside into turn 5 to control the apex and make Max go around would have been the play. Now, like I said before, easier said than done. I get it, but that would have been the play. So anyway, what happens? Max gets in the lead and we see a bunch of defensive technical excellence from Max once he gets the lead. He kind of stops on the apex just to prevent Lewis from accelerating, or throws the car at him, runs him a little bit wide so that he says to Lewis, I'm going to be the first one to accelerate out of this corner. You go after me because I'm on the inside. So that's the first thing. Then you see weaving down the straight. He's trying to break the slipstream. He pulls to the inside, number 3. So he does what Lewis should have done. So Max is showing Lewis how to defend the corner here. Pulls to the inside, makes Lewis go around the outside. Lewis attacks around the outside into the turn 6 and 7 chicane. Obviously that doesn't work. Max runs him out of road and controls the inside. As we go down the second back straight, the same thing happens. Max is defending. He pulls to the inside and Lewis starts attacking around the outside. So this is where it all got undone, guys. If Lewis just pulls to the inside, turn 5, gets a good drive out of turn 5, no DRS, remember, 1 lap to go. Sure, Max gets a slipstream, starts to attack around the outside. You do exactly what Max did. You pull to the inside, you defend, you control and manage the corner from the inside. It's something we've seen Lando struggle with this year. And Max is like, you know, he's always first to the inside. So you got to make sure you're one step ahead of him and just grab the inside first, ask the questions later. So like I say, guys, there's a few threads there which Lewis could have pulled at. You know, it could have been the defensive line. It could have been something creative off the restart. Could have been weaving down the back straight, pulling to the inside, delaying when he accelerates out of corners. You know, it's all in the racecraft. So that's like I said before at the start of this video, guys, we need to look at this head on for what it is and not shy away from Abu Dhabi 21. Yeah, it was a shit referee's call. Yeah, it was this and that and conspiracy and Lewis should have walked it home under the safety car. Yeah, I get it. But there's still 1 lap to play for. There's still that point, that lap, that match point that needs to be played. And it was all to play for, in my opinion. Like it was an assessment in racecraft. Max wins with what Max had. Max wins with what Lewis has had. Because if he had what Lewis had, you guarantee yourself he's going to pull to the inside, defend turn 5, weave down the straight, defend turn 6, weave down the next straight and defend turn 7. There's no way Lewis is coming past soft tire or no tire. So then Lewis loses the race and loses the championship. And then what I'm saying now is the technical flaw of racecraft, attack, defense, restarts is now got mental implications. And you can imagine for any human being, any sporting professional, there's going to be a bunch of questions that they're going to be asking themselves immediately and they're going to feel like shit. Like I get it, 100% get it. So in the first instance, it's going to be like, what happened? Was I robbed? Did I do a mistake? Do we need to appeal this? What do I say in the press? Like there's going to be all of these questions that are going to pop up in the initial phases. And then later when Lewis reflects on that, he's going to be like, far out, did I really mess up? Like, what could I have done differently? Was this fair? Like, again, do we need to appeal? Will I get this opportunity again? Am I still good enough? Am I the greatest? Like, is Max better than me? Have I lost it? Like, guys, I can't begin to explain to you all of the questions that are going to be going through Lewis Hamilton's head at this point. And that's the mental dip that we spoke about. That's where the technical deficiencies are going to have mental and mindset implications. And all of these questions, I could write for you 20 questions, which he's going to be asking himself, like I mentioned before. So, and like I say, guys, I don't think those serve you. You can't change the past. Like when we say you can't change the referee's decision, you're not going to be able to change the past. You're not going to be able to answer these questions. Like the one that, could you have done something differently? Well, yeah, I've answered that. But you know, the ones that are like, am I still the greatest? Should we appeal? Or all of those questions don't serve you. There's only a few that are going to serve you. It's what could I have done differently? How could I have done a better job in that match point, in that final lap. That's the only question that's going to serve you. The rest is just all mental cloudiness, and it's just going to take your energy. It's mental defeat. And that's where I'm saying when you slide the tire, you overheat it. And when you overheat the tire, you slide it even more. It's exactly what I'm saying here. So I don't think these mental questions are going to serve you. I wouldn't even go into them. I wouldn't even give them the time or day. The only area I would be looking would be in the technical side, the attack and defense, because if he can resolve for that, then he can resolve for all of the questions that would have popped up thereafter. So I hope that makes sense up to this point, guys. Like, I want to say that Abu Dhabi 21 was an exercise in racecraft. It was an exercise in attack and defense. You can't control the referee's decision. You will never be able to. You can only control how you respond. Technical flaws and deficiencies will lead you to mental and mindset implications. And this is what's happening. So I'm starting to paint the picture to you guys that 21 was a technical deficiency and led him down these questions of, am I still the best? Natural questions, right? Human questions. So I hope it makes sense up to this point, guys. Okay, so now we need to get to 2022, 2023, and 2024. How are we here, right? And why has Lewis been struggling with these new generation of cars? Well, I think we're back to it. I think we're back to a technical issue. Dare I say it? I think we're back to a driving issue that stemmed from the mental issues of 2021. Of course, there's going to be self-doubt. Of course, there's going to be lack of self-confidence. You know, of course, there's going to be all of those things. Am I still the best? Will I get this chance again? Like, what do I need to do? Of course, there's going to be all that. That's going to drain your energy and distract from your focus. Meanwhile, you got George in the other car with nothing to lose, driving like a machine, driving great. We're back to the technical issues here, guys. So before I get into highlighting to you what I think the technical issues have been in the last few years, I just want to characterize Lewis's driving style and tell you about a specific type of corner that we're going to look at. So if I had to characterize Lewis's driving style, and the specific type of corner that I want to look at is long corner of constant radius. Now, if you're not familiar with the corner types, there's 7 technical corners. You've got chicanes, hairpins, S's, double apex, and then you've got the 3 long corners. The reason I choose long corner of constant radius and double click and pin that is because it's one of those corners where you can play around with your rotation. You can play around with your brake pressure. You know, you can play around with when you get on throttle, whether you go in deeper, harder, later, earlier, you know, all of these things, how you combine the brake and steering. And that's the corner that's going to give me an insight into Lewis Hamilton's driving style and way of thinking. It's also going to give me an insight into all of the other drivers. And we can use that corner and project forward into how the drivers drive more generally. I'm not interested in chicanes. I don't want to see how Lewis takes the Tamburello chicane or the final chicane in Canada or Monza's Ascari chicane, because the rotation, you haven't got as much time in those corners. It's more about the curbs. I'm not interested in hairpins. I'm not interested in the way he takes S's. I'm interested in the long corner of constant radius and then using that to project forward. So what Lewis likes to do in these types of corners is pretty much get to the apex first. So he'll brake late, he'll brake hard, he'll dive into the apex, he'll turn in earlier. Sometimes he'll drive the tight line as well, which we've spoke about on this channel, which is a step inside the normal racing line. And the main focus is to get the corner in, to get in and out as quickly as possible. That's what he wants to do. He wants to get the corner over and done with. Lewis pretty much pushes the chips, if we're talking like poker terms, he pushes the chips all in. Like, he'll brake late, hard, aim for the apex, shoot to the apex. And then, as per what Jenson Button says, he just sorts it all out. Like any oversteer, any slides, anything happening mid-corner, he sorts it all out with the steering wheel. The same on the exit. He goes all in with the throttle, and then any dramas, like he just sorts it out on the exit. So that's a strength and a weakness, right? That's how Lewis Hamilton drives these long corners of constant radius. Now, how Max drives these long corners of constant radius is very different. He'll brake earlier, gently, initially, start to turn, and bang, he's getting information at that point. Is the car turning where I want it to turn? Do I have the grip that I thought I was going to have? How did the car react under braking? If I continue on this path, am I on the right path? Am I happy with this? And by doing it this way, he's got the time in the middle of this corner to make the necessary adjustments. This is the time and luxury that Lewis doesn't have. Remember, he went all in. he broke as late as he possibly could and turned in. So any dramas that he has, he's going to have to face them. Whereas Max can say, well, there's actually more grip. I'm going to come out of the brakes earlier. Or there's actually more grip. I'm going to wind on the steering and brake a little bit later on, or I'm going to get on the throttle earlier. He can make these micro mid-corner adjustments in the middle of this corner, and then you end up with pretty much the perfect corner more often, right? It's a more consistent way of driving because he's not committed to the corner the same way Lewis is committed. And these two driving styles for me, again, if we have to give tennis analogy, are like a one-handed backhand from Roger Federer and a two-handed backhand from Rafael Nadal. Like, they're totally different. There's pros and cons for each, right? So that's just their styles and that's what they have. So the reason that I've picked this corner and characterized their driving styles in this corner, again, is because it's going to give us an insight into how they drive all of the other tracks and all of the other types of corners as well. What are they trying to achieve? What are they aiming for? So now what I'd like to do is have a look at 2021 versus 2024. That is the old set of regulations when Lewis was driving well, and then the new set of regulations, and see what like, has Lewis moved on? Has he adapted to these cars the same way the likes of Max Verstappen and Lando Norris have? So let's jump over to the telemetry and have a look at that now. All right, hopefully you can see that on the screen in front of you. So for now, I've just got 2021 Hungary qualifying, Hamilton versus Bottas. So I've picked 2021 because I want to show you guys how Lewis was driving in 21 and how it was working. And I've got Hamilton, Bottas because they were 1-2 here, the 15-4 and the 15-7. And I've picked Hungary because we've got the long corners of constant radius. That's the second last and last corner. And I want to show you guys how Lewis Hamilton is driving. So if we have a look at the delta here, anytime it goes up is in Lewis Hamilton's favor, right? Because it finishes up, finishes 3/10 up, and that's the difference that we see here. So check this out in these last three corners. You see how it kind of goes up and then down and then up and then down and then up and then down? That's Lewis finding time on the entry, like stealing time on the entry, and then Valtteri potentially getting that back on the exit. So again, that's why we use long corners of constant radius, because we can see these sort of things happening. So if we zoom in on this, you'll see the ups and the downs and the ups and the downs, but generally the theme is up, right? So let me just get the last part of that lap there. Generally, if you had to say from being up 2.3 tenths to being up here 3.59 tenths, Lewis has found a tenth in this whole section. But what I really want to call out to you guys is with Hamilton in Aqua, the late braking that's being done into these three corners, the last three corners in Hungary, right? So you've got the late braking here. This is Aqua later than White. This is Lewis later than Valtteri. Similar into the second last corner. But have a look at this into the last corner, significantly later on the brakes. And that's what I wanted to highlight to you guys just to start the analysis, was Lewis's late braking technique into these corners was fine in 2021, but it's going to lead us to dramas come 2023, 2024. So what I want to do now is same track. I want to compare the likes of Lando Norris 21 to 24, Max Verstappen 2021 and 2024, and then see how these drivers are adapting in these types of corners as well. So these last two corners here are the ones I'm interested in. Now, it's good to take Lando because he's definitely got on top of these 2024 cars, and he was beating his teammate Daniel Ricciardo in 2021. So Lando and Max are two great examples that we can learn from. So let's have a look and zoom in and see what Lando's been doing 2021 versus 2024. So 21, this is Lando in orange, and then 24, this is in white. And what you'll see is the white braking much earlier than the orange in these types of corners, right? So you've got Lando in white, that is the 2024. He's braking much earlier now than he was back in 2021. And the idea is that these cars don't like that hard late braking because they're too heavy, they're too aerodynamically sensitive. Any little micro slide is just going to upset and ruin the whole corner. So the drivers don't want to commit this year. They just want to do like what I said before, just brake earlier, gentle, suss out the corner and try to get on throttle earlier. That's the best way to keep the platform stable, right? So you see Lando braking earlier this year in white and then getting on the throttle earlier. You see him braking earlier again, getting on throttle earlier, braking earlier, getting on throttle earlier, into the final two corners in Hungary, the long corners of constant radius, which we said are important. Something else I want to call out here is check out where the minimum speeds are here. You see Lando's minimum speeds are generally earlier this year, which is the white year, than they are in the 2021 year. Again, that's because he's braking earlier. He's doing everything earlier, braking earlier, rotating earlier, getting on throttle earlier, because he wants to brake from a slower speed. He doesn't want to brake late and hard with more speed. It's going to chuck the car out of its window. He wants to do everything earlier and gentler. And then you can see that with the minimum speed being before the other minimum speed, right? Let's jump over to Max Verstappen and see if exactly the same thing is happening. Yeah, as far as the minimum speeds go, we can see that the light blue 2024 is happening earlier than the dark blue. Again, light blue before dark blue, light blue before dark blue, tick, tick, tick. And then we see the light blue that is this year braking earlier on all 3 occasions than the dark blue. So Lando and Max are aligned here with how they're driving these cars. So now let's have a look at Lewis Hamilton in these types of corners. The first thing you'll notice is that the minimum speeds are exactly the same point as they were in 2021. There's been absolutely no adjustment from Lewis to adjust to these new cars in these types of corners. Fascinating. He hasn't changed his rotation point at all. If anything here, it's slightly later. This one's slightly earlier, but without zooming in, analysis paralysis, these are pretty much exactly where they were 2021 to 2024. Now that we've done the minimum speeds, let's have a look at the braking, and this is where it gets really fascinating. We're expecting the 2024 Lewis Hamilton to brake earlier than the 2021 Lewis Hamilton. That's what Max and Lando are doing. That's what these young boys are doing. So the 2024 is in white. Check this out. They're braking at exactly the same point, Lewis 24 versus 21. And here, this is where it's crazy. Lewis is braking later this year than he was in 2021 into the second last corner in Hungary. If I just click that, you'll see it pop up here. And that's the madness, guys. That's where he's totally off track. And here into the final corner, he's braking at exactly the same point. So that's a different thing to what we saw Lando Norris doing in white, braking earlier each and every single time, getting on throttle earlier each and every single time, doing the rotation earlier every single time. That's not what Lewis Hamilton is doing. So if we trust Lando and we trust Max, as those are the guys that have been able to adapt, and those are the guys that were competing for the 2024 World Championship, and we say that Lewis has been struggling, like, I rest my case here, guys. This is case in point. Now, if we take a look at another long corner of constant radius, this is Netherlands turn 10. Again, I like to look at this corner because it gives you an insight into what the drivers are doing. Have a look at the minimum speeds here. I'm just going to zoom in and see what Lando's doing with the minimum speeds. Again, you got this year in white and 2021 for Lando in orange. Again, look, this minimum speed is before this one. So that tells me that Lando's braking earlier, gentler, getting the rotation done earlier, and then thinking about the throttle coming on harder and earlier as well. Let's take a look at Max Verstappen into that corner. Again, the light blue here where this dotted line is, that's 2024. He's got the rotation done earlier here. And then in 2021, we saw him going a little bit later, braking later and harder into these types of corners as well. Let's take a look at Lewis Hamilton now and see what's going on in turn 10, long corner of constant radius, Netherlands. The 2024 is in aqua and the 2021 is in white. Draw a line down the middle, bang. The minimum speeds are pretty much at exactly the same point. So this is, again, further evidence that in these types of corners, and more generally and broadly speaking, Lewis hasn't adapted to these cars by braking slightly earlier, slightly gentler, slightly softer, and being more progressive with the brake pedal as to not upset these big dinosaur cars and their big weight distributions under braking and aerodynamic platforms as well. So moving into Ferrari, what does Lewis Hamilton need to do to get back to winning ways? Well, like we said at the start of the video, technical deficiencies are going to have mental and mindset implications, which are going to lead you to technical deficiencies. Now, it works the same both directions. It works that direction, but if you want to resolve for that, then you need to resolve for the technical deficiencies that have led to those mental and mindset issues in the first place, right? So step one is to acknowledge that Abu Dhabi 2021 was an assessment in racecraft. Yes, there was other factors at play. Yes, the referee's call was a bad one. Yes. Yes, it was tough. But in order to move on, this is, like I said at the start of the video, this is what you have to do. You have to face it front on. And if you can acknowledge that Abu Dhabi 21 was an assessment in racecraft where Max did a better job, then you should be comfortable with that. It's actually not that hard to resolve for, technically. It's a few small changes, pulling to the inside, defending and covering the corner. It's Max Verstappen behind you. If you give the guy half a gap, 100% he's all in up it. Lewis also speaks about, giving Max Verstappen extra space because it's Max Verstappen and he deserves extra space. No, again, I've spoken about this before on the channel. No one deserves extra space. You're Lewis Hamilton to give Max Verstappen extra space. What are you doing? I would treat Max Verstappen the same as I treat every other driver. And that should be Lewis's mindset and standpoint moving into 2025. So the first step is acknowledge that Abu Dhabi 21 was an assessment in racecraft. Attack and defense, that's the technical deficiency. That's the technical area that needs addressing and needs to be improved moving forward into 25. The second is that Lewis needs to be more adaptable. Heading into 22, 23, and 24, it's a new regulation set. You've got to come in with an open mind. What worked before is not going to work now. Remember, Fernando Alonso moved from 2006 Renault to 2007 McLaren. He had to make all sorts of adjustments because that McLaren was more lively as well. Again, in those times, those cars they were light, they were agile, the tires were skinny. You could drive the way Lewis drives. If you get a bit of a slide, it's all good, you can correct it. Have a look at Lewis's 2007 pole lap around Silverstone. The car is on a knife edge dancing around, but it doesn't cost him lap time. Whereas with these big cars, yes, like we discussed before, you can't afford to brake late and hard and go all in. You're going to have to just drive it a little bit under the limit to keep the weight and platform stable to get the best out of the car. So I think being more adaptable, having a more open mind, and being willing to change your style is what's going to serve Lewis Hamilton well. Roger Federer changed his racket 5 or 6 times just to keep up with the competition, to say, yeah, this is what worked and got me this far, but I need more now. I need something that gives me, I'm not a specialist in tennis, but I need something that gives me more topspin or a flatter shot or moves through the air quicker or whatever. He needs to keep up with what's happening because the young guys coming through showing Lewis how it's done. He needs to be more adaptable to resolve for the issues that we spoke about in 25. But then when the new regs come in 26, he also needs to be more adaptable to take on whatever the challenges those new cars are going to present as well. Now, the third and final thing that he needs to do is realize the team that he's going into. It's Ferrari. Those guys build a good car. The guys and girls at Maranello, generally speaking, build pretty good cars of which you can take and fight for championships with. But the race operations at Ferrari is a little bit shaky, like the strategy at times. I would be taking the Carlos Sainz approach. Let the guys and girls at Maranello build you a good car, but you need to be the one that takes the race operations moving forward. You've got to pretty much determine your own run plans, determine when you're going to pit, determine what strategy you're going to run, look after your own start. You pretty much need to look after yourself because Ferrari race operations can be a little bit clumsy. We've heard Carlos on the radio saying, stop inventing, stop being so creative. This is what I want to do. We've heard them call him into the pits and Carlos saying, no, one more lap. That's exactly the sort of mentality Lewis needs to take into Ferrari. If he can just jump in that car and do most of the race operations himself and take most of the responsibility for that, I think he'll go well, because sometimes Ferrari can drag you down, and that's going to cost points in 25. So to conclude, guys, if he can just do those 3 things, the technical areas, if he can realize Abu Dhabi 21 was a technical deficiency, if he can be more adaptable moving more into 25, and if he can acknowledge that Ferrari race operations aren't great and he's going to have to take responsibility for that, I've pretty much given him the blueprint for success. I don't see now any reason, if he does those 3 things, why he can't compete for the championship in 2025 in that red car. If you enjoyed this video, learned something from it, please give me a question or comment in the comment section below. It helps boost the channel, boost this video, and push this message forward. Also subscribe to the channel on this video and give the video a thumbs up as well. Like I say, all of these things are going to push the channel. And we want to see Lewis doing well, right? We want to see this message pushed out there as much as possible. So I've given you guys the solution here. I've given Lewis the blueprint of what needs to be done. The least you can do is push some buttons and drop me a question or comment in the comment section below. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.